Okay, our next question comes from Morgan Cox. Hi, Morgan.
Hi. I recently got a rent increase notice for an additional $180 a week, which works out to be about 10 grand a year. I tried to find a cheaper place and there just aren't any. What little is available, there's dozens of people lined up. Lots of them are immigrants and they have plenty more money than I can possibly get. I'm already working 2 jobs. One more rent increase and my family, my 1-year-old baby, we're facing homelessness and we've got nowhere to go. My family's already been forced out of Sydney for the same reasons. I want to know, is the government going to cut immigration to match housing availability, or are we just going to keep going until every regular working Australian is homeless?
I'm so sorry you're going through that, and it's a story we all hear right across the country, obviously particularly in the biggest states around the biggest cities. We have been working very hard to get migration levels, immigration levels down to something we think the country can manage. And what we've found after those efforts is that arrival numbers have returned to about pre-COVID levels, but we're not managing the exits, the people returning back home if they've been here studying or they've been here for short-term skilled work. And we're working very hard on that. So we do want to see those migration numbers get back to something like normal for Australia. We also know that migration has been an important part of keeping our economy going. You know, we also have a very tight labour market with lots of skill shortages. I know in health, in hospitals, in aged care facilities, we struggle to keep those operations going. So it is a fine balance. Governments of all political persuasions always have to try to strike, but we know we need more houses. Like, we just need to get building more houses, and partly that's why we have focused on a range of programs to get more houses built, including affordable houses. But we also need to clear some of those log jams in planning approvals and the sort of infrastructure that stops new housing being built, whether it's footpaths, sewage and water connections and things like that. So look, this is, I know that I think you got up to 7 or 8 as the cost of living. Housing is a huge issue in the community. Well, I would say health is as well, but housing is a huge issue because I hear far too many stories like that.
Well, housing is the number one issue of cost of living. It is the cost of housing, and there are, you know, again,
supply as well.
It's supply. No, but the
number of houses.
The cost of living crisis is personified in the housing crisis, and there are people like Food Bank, you would know, does a report every year on this, and people are actually going without food because that is negotiable, whereas having a roof over their family's head is not, and so it's absolutely huge. And the migration thing, it is complex because, of course, one of the shortages we have is enough people to build the houses. So it's a real chicken and egg problem. And also you can get your eggs at the smaller shops as well. It's the companies that make it for the big supermarkets that have been hit by the avian flu.
I even tried the butcher.
If you go to your little shop, they often have it.
We've got almost a show about eggs, but Morgan, your story is serious. You're saying you're doing 2 jobs, you're trying to keep a roof over your family's head. That sounds like every day is hard for you.
It is.
Beyond lowering immigration numbers that you like, competition for housing, are there other things that you're looking for?
Well, that's really the main one. And as I understand it, the government makes the laws and decides who comes in. So if you've got 2.5 million people coming in a few years, surely you can say to them, no, we don't have enough houses for you.
Matt Keane, you're a former treasurer, and in fact, not trying to blame you, but, you know, some of the problems that were building up in New South Wales did probably happen under your previous government's watch, as there was federal government. Like, a lot of these things take a while to build up. Sydney particularly has become a place that so many people can't live in anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
is it an immigration issue? Because a lot of people are raising.
Well, I think it's more complex than that. I mean, and you know, that is one thing. But I mean, the reality is that we need more housing supply. more supply into the system means more availability for renters, for homeowners, more choice. Listening to Sophie before, I mean, her experience is not unique either. I mean, people are finding it hard to live in Sydney. They're having to move away from their care networks, their families and friends and stuff like that. And we need to address this. So I'm the Climate Authority Chair, so I'm speaking as the ex-Treasurer here today, and let me say that the number one priority for governments, a lever that they could pull, is making it easier in our planning system to get stuff built, because there's way too much red tape and green tape that is stopping housing developments, whether it be in Sydney, Melbourne or right across Australia.
Yeah, well, there's New South Wales and Victoria already working on that, but yeah, we've got another question now.